Good morning, everyone. In the last session, we discussed about the simple example on this particular abstract class here. What we did basically, here I created the abstract class here, and I'm having one method called call me method, and this particular method I made as an abstract. So why I'm making this particular method as an abstract? Because here this method I'm not interested to implement inside this particular abstract EA class. Okay, so what I'm doing here, so for this purpose I'm making this class as a abstract, and I'm having another method. The method is a common method, like it is the concrete method which I'm using inside this particular call me to here. Okay, so this is very important, we need to understand here. So now what I'm doing here, this particular class is extended with this particular abstract B here. So what is the name of the class we created here? Abstract B. And this abstract B, what is doing internally? It is trying to extend from the abstract A, and internally it is trying to override the whatever the method we are having, something like call me method. And using this particular call me method, how I'm trying to call here. So this is the main class object I created, abstract B, getting the button, and I'm calling the call me. Along with the call me, I'm trying to call the call me to also. And here, this is an abstract class. We cannot create an object because this class is not yet fully implemented. So this is the class partially implemented. Now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to defining these two methods. One is calling from the abstract B, and another one is calling from the abstract A class, because this method I did not define inside the abstract B and define inside the abstract A. Because of that, we are calling with help of the subclass object here. Okay, so this is very important here. Now what I will do, so I'm going to explain the same example with the real times here. Now observe inside this particular figure class, sorry, inside this particular package called abstract here. Now what I'm doing is, I'm trying to create a abstract class. So what is the name of the abstract class I'm trying to create? Here it is nothing but figure here. Okay, so this is the figure class I'm going to create as abstract. And so observe carefully how this abstract class is going to look like here. Getting the pen. And this particular class, now what I'm doing is, so the same, whatever the property we used earlier, I'm going to use same, something like a private double, dimension 1, and dimension 2. Okay, so this is important, we need to understand here. After creating this particular dimension 1 and dimension 2, what I'm doing is, I'm trying to create a constructor. The constructor I'm going to make as a public. Okay, so this is the constructor which is expecting two parameters. Okay, so dimension 1 and dimension 2. And now here what I'm doing here, I'm going to make this particular method as a abstract. Which method I'm making as an abstract? The method what we used earlier, something like area method. Okay, so this method I'm making as a abstract. Whenever I'm making this method as abstract, what we need to do? We need to make the particular class also abstract here. So first I'm going to make class also abstract here. Okay, so this is we need to create here. So this is basically the topmost class I'm creating, and this particular class contain the abstract method that is called area. And here whatever the two variables I used here, I'm going to generate the source and getters here. And here I'm going to generate the getters and setters for this particular method. So setters, basically we are going to use the constructor, and only the getters I'm going to generate here. Okay, now you can see here what I'm doing is, here I'm having two methods. So this particular method will store only, like it will try to return the two values here. Getting the one, it will try to return this particular two values. So this is important, we need to understand here. Now what I'm doing is, we are having the two methods here, and we are having one constructor, and internally we are defining the method as a abstract here. So now you can carefully observe, here we don't have the method body. So just I'm declaring this method. Okay, after this, these are all the the return value method. So here you can see this is returning the dimension 1, this is returning dimension 2. Why I'm generating these two methods? Because the variable we are making as a private here. Whatever the variable we are having, we are making as a private. Okay, so this is very important, we need to understand. And after this, now what I'm going to provide, I'm going to extend this particular class. So whenever I'm extending this particular class, what we need to understand here, this is whatever we are having. This particular figure is the topmost class, and what we discussed in the last session, first one is rectangle, okay, and another one is triangle. This particular classes are going to extend. Now what we are understanding is this particular class we are making as an abstract, and we are having one method called area method. This area method is going to override inside this particular rectangle class, and the same way inside this particular triangle class also we are going to override this area method. And why I'm trying to overriding this? Because the method here we made as a abstract here. This particular method we made as an abstract. Here we don't have a method body. So this is the important we need to understand. Whenever this method is going to reusable for the multiple location, now what we are doing here, we are trying to define as a abstract, because if I'm not defining as an abstract, the method what happens internally, it is going to hidden here. In the superclass method is going to hidden. Getting the point? Whenever you are trying to override the same method into the subclass, the superclass method is going to hidden here. This is important, we need to understand here. Okay, so because of this, now I'm making as an abstract here. Once we make this method as an abstract, what we can do, we are going to override into the child classes. So this triangle and rectangle both are child classes here. Okay, let me define the two classes here. Now, so inside the same package, I'm trying to create a one class called rectangle. So rectangle here, this class is going to extend from the figure. Okay, so whenever it is extending from the figure, what we need to understand, here we need to define the constructor. So why we need to define the constructor? Inside this figure class, we are not defining the default constructor. So this is very important. Again, I'm explaining. Okay, because we define only parameterized constructor. Whenever we are defining the parameterized constructor, what we need to understand here, as a compiler, it's not going to generate the parameterized construct. It is only applicable, it's going to generate the default constructor here. Okay, so explicitly we need to generate the parameterized constructor. Now you can see I'm defining rectangle, and these are all the two parameters we are having, and I'm calling superclass. So again, still it is giving me an error. Why at this time it is giving me an error? Any idea? So why I'm getting still one more time this error here? Because earlier we have a constructor related issue. I implemented the constructor here, like I generated the constructor, but I'm getting the rectangle class an error here. So why I'm getting? Any idea? Okay, so this is important, we need to understand. Basically this particular class now is extending. So if I'm trying to, no, that is wrong. If I'm trying to remove this, now the error is whatever the error we expected for the class level, it is not getting here. But now you can see the below it's getting, that is the different here. But whenever again I'm trying to add here, so observe carefully, whenever adding, now I'm getting same. If I remove this particular extents here, the error is I'm not getting here. But whenever I'm trying to add this particular extents here, again I'm getting. Getting the point? This is important here. Why we are getting this? Because in the figure class, we define the abstract method. Okay, this abstract method, basically what we need here inside this particular rectangle class, we need to override the method, or we need to make this particular class as a abstract. For example, here I'm making the abstract. So observe carefully. Now error is resolved here. Whatever the error we are getting is the error is resolved. Now I'm making the abstract. But here I'm not interested to make abstract. So what is the another best way is we need to override the method. So whatever the method we made as abstract in the super class. Okay. So what is the super class? What is the super class for this particular rectangle? Something like figure. Something like figure. Okay. This figure now. So abstract basically it is nothing but it does not having fully implementation. Okay, the keyword, the purpose of this particular keyword basically it is not implemented fully. It is partially implemented here. Okay, so for this purpose, now what we will do, we'll use the keyword call abstract. For example, if you see here, this method, okay, this method is not contain the method body. Okay, basically how we are going to define the method, we are going to define the method like this here. Okay, we are going to define the method like this. So because it is contain the method body open here and it is closed here. So internally we are returning something. But if you observe this method is not having method body. So for this purpose, what we are doing is we are making abstract. Why we are making the abstract? Because the purpose of this particular abstract keyword, it's going to provide the information to the compiler. Whatever the method we are using here, the method is not fully implemented here. Okay, so this keyword is going to share the information to the compiler. This method is not fully implemented. Whenever a method is not fully implemented, so we need to share to the class level also. Why we need to share? Because we are not going to create an object of this particular class. Why we are not going to create object? Because if the method is not implemented, if this particular method is not implemented, if you call this method, which method is going to call? Getting the pen. If you call this particular method, which method is going to call? For this purpose, so here what we are doing it at the class level, basically what happens internally? Getting the pen. We are not going to give the option to create a object. See, dimension 1, it is not a method, it is a variable we declare. So see carefully, this is the dimension 1 is a variable and get dimension 1 is a method. So see the differences here. Get dimension 1 is a method, get dimension 2 is a method. But the dimension 1, it is a variable. So that is the reason I provided multiple ways. The variable declarations, method declaration, the differences here. This is important, we need to understand here. Okay, now if you want to write the method, this is the way of writing. Getting the This is the way of writing. It's like what we'll call it as a method body. And this particular method does not contain the method body. Just we declare the method. Okay, just we declare the method. Whenever we are declaring this, so we are not giving an option to create an object of this particular figure class. Why we are not giving an option to create an object? Basically, what happens internally? Whenever this particular figure class is kept, for example, what I will do here, I am going to create an object figure something like f1 is equals to new. Okay, new figure class I created. Whenever I created this figure, now what I will do, f1 dot area. Area is a one method. Let me write clearly. Area is a one method. Now if you observe carefully, how this particular area method is going to call. Now here something here from some location we are calling something like a 60. Okay, from 61. From 61, now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to call f1 dot area. Basically, whenever we are calling this particular method, the method should define like this. Area, and it contain this method body, and it will do something here. Inside this, we are going to write some code here. Inside this, we are going to write some code. But now, what we are doing basically, here what we are doing is, so area, this method, okay, area. Now what happening internally, it is not going to, getting the point, it is not going to call because we don't have a method like this. Whatever the method we are expecting, we don't have method. But how we are having the method, it's having simply like this. it does not contain the method body. So there is no this particular curly braces here. Okay, the particular braces we don't have here. Okay, this is important. But we are expecting this type of, but we are having right now the method like this. So because of this, we are unable to call the method. So if you are unable to call the method, what is the purpose of creating an object? Okay, what is the purpose of creating an object of this particular figure class? So this is very important here. So for this purpose, now what we are doing is we are making the class also abstract here. Class also abstract. Whenever we are making the class also abstract, what happens internally? The compiler cannot give the permission to create object of this particular figure class here. Okay, is it clear? Any questions?
సార్ డేటా టైప్స్ ఏదైనా యూజ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు సార్. డిమ్ అని మీరు యూజ్ చేసుకున్నారు కదా సార్.
డెమ్ అనేది డేటా టైప్ కాదు, ఇది వేరియబుల్ నేమ్, ఇది డేటా టైప్. డబుల్ అనేది డేటా టైప్, ఇది వేరియబుల్ నేమ్. నేను అదే చెప్పాగా, వేరియబుల్ నేమ్ బేసిక్గా ఏమైనా యూజ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు అదర్ దెన్ ద కీవర్డ్. కీవర్డ్స్ వేరియబుల్గా యూజ్ చేసుకోలేము, అదొక్కటే ఇంపార్టెంట్. కీవర్డ్స్ ఎక్కడ మీరు క్లాస్ నేమ్గా యూజ్ చేయలేము, వేరియబుల్ నేమ్గా యూజ్ చేయలేము, అండ్ మెథడ్గా ఆల్సో మనం వీ కెనాట్ యూస్. సో ఈ కీవర్డ్ తప్ప మిగతా ఏమైనా యూజ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. Okay, so any questions regarding this diagram? So whatever I explained here. Okay, so now what we need to understand here, because of this particular information, because of this particular method we made as a abstract here, now this rectangle is giving me an error. This rectangle is giving me an error because here we are extending from this particular figure class. Inside the figure class, some of the methods are not implemented properly. Some of the methods just we are having declaration. Now what we can do here, we are having two options. What are the two options we are having? Basically the first option here, we can make this particular class as abstract. Now whenever we are making this particular class as abstract, what happens internally? So this particular class also we cannot create object. Why we cannot create object? Because this particular class is not fully implemented. Getting the point? Because in this class we don't have any information. So how this particular class is not fully implemented? For example, what we are doing it, this particular class now it is extending from the figure class. The figure class basically it is not implemented. Because of that, this particular class also will have the same the behavior which we are having inside the figure class. So now what happens internally? The rectangle class also will contain the unimplemented method, like undefined. Some of the methods we did not provide the body. Because of that, we are making a abstract. Other one, we can override the method. So whatever the method we are having, so I'm trying to make as this. So now you can see, whenever I'm trying to override this particular method, now observe carefully, whatever the error we get at the class level, now we are not getting any error here. Now we are not getting any error. Okay, this is very important, we need to understand. This is very important, we need to understand. Okay, so this is a way of writing the abstract method. And whenever we want to override the method, now what is the best option? We can extend this particular class and we can override the method. Okay, we can extend this particular class and we can override the method, and successfully we are making this particular class as a object creation. So this particular class we can create an object right now because we override the method. Now what I will do this, here I'm going to provide the, so inside, so inside this particular area for rectangle. Okay, and here now what I will do, and here I cannot use the dimension 1. If I'm going to use the dimension 1, I'm getting an error. So why I'm going to get an error? Any idea why? If I'm trying to use this particular dimension 1 variable name, and here now you can see here we define the dimension 1 and dimension 2 here, but still we are unable to use because of whatever the variable we made as a private. because of this particular private, we are unable to access the variable information here. Okay, this is very important, we need to understand here. Okay, this is very important, we need to understand. Because of this particular private, in the another class we are not going to use. Now what is the another best way here? Directly we can call get dimension 1. Okay, this is the get dimension 1 into the same example get dimension 2. Now this will call this particular method here. Here we are calling the method, and this method will return the value, and based on the method return value, it is trying to perform the multiplication here. First these two methods will call the values here, and it will return some value. Whatever the values we are going to get, based on that it will perform the operations here. For example, it is returning some 12 multiply with something like 24. So whatever the result we are going to get, the result is written by the area method, because here what we are doing is we are trying to use a return statement. So now observe carefully in which scenarios we are using the return statement, because so we discussed this in the earlier example, but this is very important concept here. So for this particular method return type, we are going to provide the data type. What type of the data type values we are going to return, this is important. Okay, now for example, here if I'm trying to return now you can see I'm getting an error here. I'm getting an error. Why I'm getting an error basically here? What you need to understand here? We are expecting double type. Getting the point? This particular method is expecting double type. Now what we are doing is we are trying to return string type here. We are trying to return string type because of this data type mismatch here. Okay, data type mismatch here. This is very important here. Whenever we are defining the method, whatever the return type we are going to provide here, it should return same type. It should return same type here. Okay, so this is the very important example we are discussing here. Now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to remove because it is a different data type. Now we are trying to return the same data type. How we can identify that get dimension, what is the type it will return here? Now it will go to here. So what is the type it is returning? Double type. Okay, this dimension value, it's contain the double type here. Okay, and the same way this method also will return the double type. And here the area is also expecting double type. Now here this one returning double and this one will returning double. The result also will get inside the double here. Whatever the result we are trying to get here, the result also we are going to get double. Okay, this is very important, we need to understand. Example we are discussing it. The method we define as a abstract method in the figure class. Inside the rectangle class we define as a override here. Okay, and one more class here. Now again I'm going to create a one more class, something like triangle. Okay, this particular triangle again, now what I'm doing is I'm trying to extend from the figure class. So now here also we'll get the two error. First error, it's trying to return the constructor. Okay, it's trying to return the constructor information, and the second one, it is trying to provide the unimplemented method call. What is the name of the method we declare? So observe carefully. Now this is very important here. So this is the figure class we are having, and this figure class having area method and two properties, dimension 1 and dimension 2. Now what you understand here, this information we are using commonly. Okay, the whatever the area and dimension 1 and dimension we are having, this information we are trying to use in commonly in the two classes. What are all the two classes we are having here? This is very important here. First one is rectangle. Okay, rectangle, I'm not defining any properties. I'm not defining any properties as well as methods here. Whatever the properties and method we are having inside the figure class, I am accessing here. Okay, so another one is basically here triangle. Triangle. So this triangle also the particular triangle also will use the same behavior, the same common, the method as well as the two properties into this particular subclasses here. Okay, into this particular subclasses here. This is very important. We need to understand here. Now, what you understand here? We are going to create the common class. We are going to create a common class. The common class is now reusable here. So instead of creating the property into this particular class, so just we are using from the super class. So how many classes you are going to extend here? Now you can see if you are extending 100 classes. If you are extending 100 classes, one place we define, just we are reusing all the 100 classes. For example, this class is no longer available. The figure class is no longer available inside all the 100 classes. This particular property we need to define rectangle, triangle, some other classes. This property is we are going to define here. Okay. Now think here, inside the 100 classes, if you are going to write the same code, so it is some button here. So in that case, what we are doing here, we are creating one common class and we are reusing in the multiple classes here. And the same way, we are going to provide the specific requirement. The specific requirement is nothing but this area method. This area is coming from the which class? This area is coming from the class called triangle. Okay, rectangle and another one is triangle. But here now what I'm doing, I'm trying to providing get dimension method, get to dimension 1 and get to dimension 2, and here I'm trying to divide by 2. So this is the specific logic. Now if you observe carefully, the rectangle class area is doing something. The rectangle class area will return some different result and the triangle class will return some different result. Now what we can understand, here the common method we define in the super class, and here we are trying to reusing, and same way along with that we are trying to providing the specific implementation, because triangle is doing the different operation, rectangle is doing the different operations here. Okay, this is important here. Now let me create the object here. What is the object we can create? REC TRI. Okay, so REC TRI as well as main here. Now rectangle, triangle and main class here. And here you can create two objects here. So what are all the two objects we can create? The two objects basically rectangle as well as triangle. Now if we observe carefully, if I'm going to create figure class, f1 is equals to new figure class I'm trying to create. Okay, the figure is expecting values, so 12.5 comma 78.3. Okay, now observe carefully what happens here. This is giving me an error, cannot instantiate the type for figure. Getting the point? Now you can see I'm getting an error here. So the error basically, this is providing the information like whatever we are having. Okay, cannot create object of this particular figure class. So this is the information is providing for this particular figure class. Why it is providing this information? Because the figure class cannot have all informations here. This is important, we need to understand here. Okay, so this is very important, we need to understand here. So now what I will do, for this purpose I'm not going to create a figure class, and here rectangle I'm trying to create here. And this is the rectangle, and the same value I'm going to give to this particular class. Now you can see we are not getting any error for this particular rectangle. And the same way I'm creating triangle class TRI1, tr1 and new. So triangle class I'm trying to create. Okay, so this is the one of the important class, the triangle I'm using. And what you need to understand here, you can provide the values 45.9 and 96.1 because he's expecting double data type. Now I'm providing the same double type here. Okay, this is very important, we need to understand. So for these two classes we are not getting any error, only we are getting an error for this particular figure class here. Why we are getting? The figure class cannot have full implementation, like information, or we can call it as a the fully implementation here. Only it is contain the partial implementation. Now if you see system dot out dot rec1 dot area method. Okay, and one more method I'm going to call something like tr1 dot area method. Now we'll see the outputs here. Getting the point? We'll see the outputs. Now you can see inside this particular rectangle and inside this particular rectangle we are getting, and this is the output is returning, and inside this particular triangle this is the output we are getting. Okay, for example, if I'm going to provide same values, for example, if I'm going to provide same values, now you can see again, like even though if you are providing the same values, it will give a different values. Now you can see the output basically we are getting 982 and this is the 491. Now see carefully, getting the point. This is output is different for the specific classes. But what we are doing here, the method we define in the super class, based on our requirement, we override the method and we implemented the code. Okay, so this is the simple example. Here it is returning the 992 and this is returning the 491. The output is not same, even we provided the value same here. Now what you understand here, it's like a specific requirement, we override the method and we define the example here. Okay, this is very important here. So any questions here? Any question this triangle and rectangle example?
Sir, we are not defined any formula, sir.
What is the formula you need? See, it's a simple.
Area and the rectangle, sir.
If you see here, just I'm doing the multiplication here. Okay, the multiplication basically it happens on the values. What is the value we are having? The first one, 12.5 multiply with something like 78.6. So this is the result we are getting, something like 982 dot something 49. Okay, and the same, this is for the REC. REC is nothing but rectangle. Now the same value, what I'm doing here, I'm trying to providing 12. Sorry. So I'm doing 12.5 multiply with something like 78.6. Based on the result here, what we will get basically, the result will get as a 982 dot something 49. And here what I'm doing here, I'm dividing here. Here I'm doing the extra one more operations here. This is the extra one more operation I'm doing inside this particular triangle class. Okay, this operation is no longer available inside this particular rectangle class. So now what we need to understand, this is the specific implementation. Okay, we are not interested to divide the operation, we are not implementing. Like here inside the rectangle, we are not interested to divide the whatever the result we are going to get. But here we are interested, first we are doing the multiplication and later we are using the division operations. Okay, so this is happening inside the triangle. So it is a specific implementation inside the triangle and this is the another specific implementation. Okay, so is it clear?
Yes, sir. It's clear, sir.
Okay, so based on our requirement, basically what we can do, we can override the method Okay, we can override the method and we can define the whatever the logic is not important. But here, based on our requirement, we are going to write the logic. But only the thing what we need to understand, first we need to think what are all the common method we are going to use and where we can define this common. Because instead of, for example, if I'm not defining the common method inside the figure class, what we are going to do? So inside the rectangle, we are going to define the same method. Inside the triangle, we are going to define the same method. We have a one more class. Okay, so one more something like ABC class we are having. So inside the ABC also, we are going to define the some area same area method. Now it is a duplicate method. The duplicate method we are defining inside this particular three classes. So this is the simple one. But if you observe, around we are having like more than 10 classes. Now what we can do inside all the more than 10 classes, we are going to write the duplication methods here. Okay, this is not the expected behavior. So inside that, now what we are doing is we come up with the one super class. We are going to write all the methods and we'll try to so reusable the same method into the multiple classes here. Okay, so this is very important. We need to understand here. సాయి నీకేమైనా క్వశ్చన్స్ ఉన్నాయా? Okay, so now I'm going to provide the one of the important example called the final with inheritance. So basically we discuss about the variables here. The final variable we discussed in the previous example.
ట్రయాంగిల్ అనేది డేటా టైప్ సార్.
ట్రయాంగిల్ అనేది ఒక డేటా టైపే, కాకపోతే ఇది ఒక క్లాస్ ఇక. ఇక్కడ చూస్తే ఇక్కడ నేను క్లాస్ డిఫైన్ చేశాను కదా, ట్రయాంగిల్ అనే ఒక క్లాస్ ఈజ్ ఎక్స్టర్నింగ్ ఫ్రమ్ ద ఫిగర్ క్లాస్. సో ఇది ఒక డేటా టైప్, కానీ ఇక్కడ ఏం చేస్తున్నాను, ఇంటర్నల్గా ఒక కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ డిఫైన్ చేశాను, ఒక మెథడ్ని రాశాను. సో ఈ మెథడ్ ఏం చేస్తుంది, ఫస్ట్ ఇది మల్టిప్లై చేస్తుంది, వచ్చిన రిజల్ట్తో ఇది డివిజన్ ఆపరేషన్ చేస్తుంది. వచ్చిన రిజల్ట్తో ఇది డివైడ్ చేసి ఆ రిజల్ట్ని రిటర్న్ చేస్తుంది. సో ఇక్కడ మల్టిప్లై చేసిన రిజల్ట్ని రిటర్న్ చేయట్లే. సో ఇంపార్టెంట్ ఇక్కడ ఆ మల్టిప్లై వచ్చిన రిజల్ట్తో మళ్ళీ ఇక్కడ ఒక ఆపరేషన్ చేస్తున్నాం, అది డివిజన్ ఆపరేషన్. ఆ డివిజన్ ఆపరేషన్ తర్వాత వచ్చిన రిజల్టే ఈ ఏరియా మెథడ్ రిటర్న్ చేస్తుంది ఇక్కడ. అందుకని మనకి ఇక్కడ 491 వస్తుంది. ఇక్కడ చూస్తే ఇన్సైడ్ ఏరియా ఫర్ ట్రయాంగిల్, సో ఇన్సైడ్ ఏరియా ఫర్ ట్రయాంగిల్, దాని తర్వాత ఇది రిటర్న్ చేస్తుంది. సో ఇది ఒక క్లాస్ వి క్రియేటెడ్ అండ్ రెక్టాంగిల్ ఆల్సో వీ హ్యావ్ ఏ వన్ మోర్ క్లాస్. ఇక్కడ రెండు క్లాసులు క్రియేట్ చేశాను. క్లాస్ ఇస్ నథింగ్ బట్ ఒక కస్టమ్ డేటా టైప్. అంటే కస్టమ్ డేటా టైప్ ఎలా అంటే, ఇప్పుడు డబుల్ ఉంది, డబుల్ ఎలా అయితే డేటా టైప్ మనం అనుకుంటున్నామో రెక్టాంగిల్ ఆల్సో డేటా టైప్. కాకపోతే ఏంటంటే ఈ డేటా టైప్ ఓన్లీ వీటి కోసమే పనిచేస్తుంది. ఇంకా వేరే ఎక్స్ట్రా ఇచ్చాం అనుకో కంపైలర్ ఎర్రర్ ఇస్తుంది. కానీ ఇక్కడ డబుల్కి ఏం చేస్తున్నాం, ఏ వాల్యూ అయినా మనం ప్రొవైడ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు, ఆ డబుల్ వాల్యూ ఉంటే చాలు. సో అదే డిఫరెన్సెస్ ఇయర్. ఓకే, so now I'm moving into one of the important example called final. So first we'll see what we can understand the final variable information. So what I did earlier example, whenever I'm trying to use the final variable, for example here private, if I'm going to make as a final, what happening internally, so here we are using the get method, we are not getting any error. Here also we are not getting any error. But observe carefully what happens internally. So here if I'm trying to set here dimension 1 something like 10 I'm giving. Okay, ఎప్పుడైతే నేను ఇక్కడ 10 ఇచ్చానో డైమెన్షన్ 1కి నేను డైమెన్షన్ 2 కావాలి కదా. సో డైమెన్షన్ 2 నేను ఫైనల్ అని డిఫైన్ చేస్తున్నాను, దీనికి 20 వాల్యూ ఇచ్చా. ఓకే, డైమెన్షన్ 2కి 20 వాల్యూ ఇచ్చా. నాకేమవుతుంది, వెంటనే లైన్ నెంబర్ 9లో ఒక ఎర్రర్ వస్తుంది. నాకు వెంటనే లైన్ నెంబర్ 9లో ఎర్రర్ వస్తుంది. ఎందుకు ఎర్రర్ వస్తుంది? సో వై ఐఎమ్ గెటింగ్ అన్ ఎర్రర్ లైన్ నెంబర్ 9? ఎనీ ఐడియా? So whenever I'm trying to initialize the value, the line number 5, so I'm getting an error. this example, like the final variable example we already discussed in the previous release. Yes, yes, explain me. Okay, basically what I want to explain here, this particular variable only one time it will allow the initialization. Whenever we are making the variable as a final, what happens internally? Only one time it is allow the value initialization. But here the line number 9, what we are doing is we are trying to modifying the existing value. Okay, this is important. We are trying to modifying the existing value. Whenever we are trying to modify the existing value, what happens internally? It will give an error. Why it is giving an error? The final behavior. Okay, the final variable behavior basically only one time it allows the user to initialization. Okay, if you are trying to modify the from second time onwards, it will give an error. This is very important. We need to understand here. This is very important example we need to understand. For example, what I will do here, I'm not adding anything, just I'm declaring it, and the variable I'm making as a final here. But here, what you need to understand here, I'm going to generate the setter methods. Now, if you observe, whenever I'm trying to generate the setters here, how many variables I'm getting here? Only one variable. What is the name of the variable I'm getting? Dimension 1. Why I'm not getting the second one called dimension 2? Getting the point? Why I'm not getting this particular dimension 2? Because we made the variable as a final here. Whatever the variable we are having, we made this particular variable as a final. Because of that, it is not providing setter. So for example, what I will do here, I'm going to close this, and this method also I'm going to make as a final. Okay, so here how many methods we are having? Two variables. Whatever the two variables we defined here, the two variables I'm making as a final. So now we'll see whether we can generate the methods. Or now you can see here we don't have an option to generate the two variables here. Getting the point? This is important. We need to understand. Final variable cannot be initialized more than one time. Okay, this is I want to provide the information. For example, what happens if I'm going to write explicitly? Public void set to dimension 1 and here double d. Okay, this dot dimension 1 is equals to d. Now you can see line number 20, I am getting an error here. Getting the point? The line number 20, I am getting an error. Why I am getting an error? Because the final, whatever the final variable we are having, we are trying to modify more than one time. Because here we are modifying line number 9. Okay, line number 8 and line number 9 we are modifying. Again, line number 20, again we are trying to modifying the value. So this is not applicable here because of this particular final. Okay, this is important example I'm discussing for the variable level. And the same way, now what I will do, I'm going to provide the example for the methods here. Okay, whatever the final we are having, what happens here? If I'm going to use for this abstract to final. Okay, what happens internally? Basically, whenever we are making a method as a final, it will not allow the subclasses here. It will not allow the subclasses to override the same method. For example, I will go to the rectangle class. Now you can see. Now again, I'm going to triangle class. What happening internally? In the two classes, we are getting an error. Why we are getting an error? Because what we did, whatever the method we declared, we provided final here. Whenever we are providing the final, what happens internally? So it will not allow the user to override the method. Now you can read this, cannot override the final method from the figure class. Cannot override the final method from the figure class here. This is very important information we are getting here. Now, so this is the behavior of this particular final method. Whenever we are making the method as a final, the method it is not going to use inside the subclasses here. Okay, is it clear? Any questions?
సార్ ప్రైవేట్ ఫైనల్ డబుల్ ఉంది కదా సార్, ఇక్కడ పబ్లిక్ ఫైనల్ డబుల్ యూజ్ చేసుకోవచ్చా సార్?
Line number చెప్పు.
4, 5 సార్. 4
ఓకే,
పబ్లిక్
ప్రైవేట్ ఉంది ఇది.
ఫైనల్.
ఈ ఎక్కడ ఓకే, ఇప్పుడు నువ్వు ప్రైవేట్ అని డిఫైన్ చేస్తావు, పబ్లిక్ ఎక్కడ డిఫైన్ చేయాలనుకుంటున్నావు?
ఎస్ సార్.
ఎక్కడ? ఇక్కడ నువ్వు అనేది లైన్ నెంబర్ 4లోనేనా?
4th లైన్ సార్.
సి అది చేసుకోవచ్చు, కాకపోతే ఇక్కడ నువ్వు పబ్లిక్ డిఫైన్ చేసుకోవచ్చు, కానీ ప్రాబ్లం ఏంటంటే సో మనకు కొన్ని రూల్స్ ఉన్నాయి. అంటే ఈ క్లాస్ని ఎన్క్యాప్సులేషన్గా మార్చుకోవాలనుకుంటే, ఇప్పుడు ఏదైతే నేను ఫిగర్ క్లాస్ అని ఇక్కడ రాశానో ఈ క్లాస్ని ఎన్క్యాప్సులేషన్ ఒక ప్రిన్సిపల్లోకి మార్చుకోవాలనుకుంటే నేను ఆ వేరియబుల్ని ప్రైవేటే చేయాలి. నువ్వు ఎన్క్యాప్సులేషన్ ప్రిన్సిపల్ నేను వాడను అనుకుంటే నువ్వు ప్రైవేట్ వాడుకో, ఇక్కడ డిఫాల్ట్ వాడుకో, ప్రొటెక్టెడ్ వాడుకో, అది నీ ఇష్టం. ఓకే, కానీ రియల్ టైంలో ఏదైనా ఒక క్లాస్ మనం డిఫైన్ చేస్తున్నామంటే దానికి ఎన్క్యాప్సులేషన్ ప్రిన్సిపల్ వాడతాం. ఆ ఎన్క్యాప్సులేషన్ ప్రిన్సిపల్ ఏంటంటే సో వేరియబుల్ని మనం డైరెక్ట్గా యాక్సెస్ ఇవ్వం, వేరే క్లాస్ నుంచి ఈ వేరియబుల్ యాక్సెస్ చేయడానికి పర్మిషన్ లేదు. అంటే అప్పుడు ఏం చేయాలి? ఆ వేరియబుల్ని ప్రైవేట్తో డిక్లేర్ చేయాలి. ఈ వేరియబుల్ని ఎలా యాక్సెస్ చేస్తాము? ఇలా యాక్సెస్ చేస్తున్నాం, అంటే మెథడ్కి ఆప్షన్ ఇస్తున్నాను, మెథడ్కి పబ్లిక్ పెడుతున్నాను, వేరియబుల్కి మాత్రం ప్రైవేట్ పెడుతున్నాను. సో ఇది ఒక ప్రిన్సిపల్. ఓకే, ఈ ప్రిన్సిపల్ మనకి జావా లాంగ్వేజ్లో ఒక ఎన్క్యాప్సులేషన్ ఒక ఊప్స్ ప్రిన్సిపల్ ఉంది, దాన్ని ఫాలో అవుతూ నేను ఇక్కడ ఈ క్లాస్ రాశాను. కానీ నువ్వు ఇంట్రెస్ట్ లేదు అంటే నువ్వు పబ్లిక్ పెట్టుకోవచ్చు, ఇక్కడ ఏ ఇబ్బంది ఏం లేదు. ఓకే, ఇంకేమన్నా క్వశ్చన్సా? Okay, now we understand how this particular the final method is giving me an error, because whenever we are making the method as a final, it will not allow the subclasses. So I am removing this particular final. Basically here one more important information we need to understand. Whenever we are defining this particular abstract method, by default it is a public. Okay, by default it is a public. Why they are providing the public here? Because this method is going to be override in the subclasses here. If you are making this method as a private, for example, here I am trying to make the method as a private. What happens internally? Now you can see the method we are getting an error here, and the same way here also now you can see the rectangle class I am trying to show the error. The method area, the type rectangle must override or implement super type method. Getting the point? So we are getting an error. So whatever the method we are having area, the rectangle, it must be override or implement the super type method. Okay, super type method basically what we provided here we provided as a private. Whenever we are providing private, the private information we are not going to access outside of this particular class. Even here also, constructor if you make private, okay, variable if you make private, and methods if you make private, you are not going to access outside of this particular class. This is very important information we are discussing here. Okay, because of that what we are doing, by default whenever we are making the method as an abstract, the method should be public. If I'm going to add, now you can see the error is no longer available. Whatever the error we defined here, the error is no longer available. But now you can see, so why I am getting an error here? Okay, here we are making the visibility issue, but here we need to make public here. Whenever I'm making public, the error will resolve here. This is important here. Whenever you're making the methods here, the visibility also important here. First, the topmost visibility public. Later, we can move on to the protected. Okay, and later we are going to discuss about the default, and finally private. Okay, the priority, it will look like this. Topmost priority, it will go to the public, and later it will go to the protected, and later it will go to the default, and finally it will move on to the private here. Okay, so whenever you are making one method as a public, you should follow public. Getting the point? You should follow public, and whenever you are making the method as a private, you can provide anything. You can provide default, you can provide protected, you can provide public. But when you're providing the public, so this, because of this particular topmost priority, so you need to follow only public. If you try to decrease the like the visibility, it will give an error. It will give an error. Right now, same thing it is happening for this particular example called triangle. Now here, what we are doing here we are trying to use a default. Default basically, if I'm not providing any the keyword, either private, protected or public, it will move on to the default one. It will move on to the default one. But the topmost method what I did, I provided as a public. Whenever I'm providing the public, now what I'm doing, I'm trying to decreasing into default here. I'm trying to decreasing into default here. So this is not applicable here. This is important here. This particular decrement is not applicable here because we provided topmost as a public. Where we provided method as a public here. Now if we go to this figure, here we provide as a public. Okay, so here we provide as a public, and inside the rectangle, I'm not providing anything. If I'm not providing, it will take as a default access modifier. Okay, this is important here. It will take as a default access modifier. Whenever it is taking default access modifier, now what we need to understand here, we are trying to decreasing the performance. We are trying to decrease the visibility of this particular public to default. So because of this, it is giving me an error. So one more important I am going to provide. Here I am going to provide public. Okay, here I am providing public, and from figure class, I will remove the public. Okay, from this particular class, I'm removing the public. Now, what you can understand here, what is the visibility we are having? What is the visibility we are having right now? Something like default. Default, because I did not provide anything. I did not provide anything. Whenever I'm providing default, now you can go to these two classes. I'm not getting any error. So inside the rectangle, I'm not getting, and inside the triangle, I'm not getting. Why I'm not getting? Basically because compared to the default, the topmost priority we given. Okay, public we given, so it is applicable here. It is applicable. So default we can make it the topmost one, but from the topmost to default, it is not applicable. So this section is applicable, this section is not applicable. This is very, very important information we are discussing here. Okay, so and another important here, if I'm going to make as a this one, okay, this one private. If I'm going to make this as a private, whenever I'm making private, it is giving me an error. Why it is giving me an error? And here again, now you can see the reduce the visibility. So cannot reduce the visibility. Getting the point? This is important. Now how we'll see the diagram. So here we discuss the default here. Okay, on top of the default, we are going to have protected, and the topmost one will have public. Okay, and private below. Private below. So from here to it will allow this, protected, it will allow this. Okay, it will allow this. Now from default to this section is no longer available. So this is, so now you can see this is the left side, and we can, if I'm going to discuss about the right side which will not allow. From left side we can make anything here. Getting the point? Left side from default to protected, protected public, public to, for public is the topmost, we are not going to write anything. But public to protected you cannot, protected to default you cannot, so default to private you cannot. Getting the point? So this is currently what we are doing is from default to private we are making the visibility. Because of that it is giving me an error here. Because of here it is giving me an error. Okay, this is very, very important. The visibility we are discussing, visibility of the method here. Any questions here? Okay, if we don't have anything, so today evening we'll discuss the one of the important concept called packages and interfaces here. Getting the point? This is one of the important topic we are going to discuss here. Okay, so we'll continue. So try to practice. I'm going to upload the video and try to practice the sessions here so that we can easily understand whatever we are going to discuss today evening here.